Welcome to I Love My Club By, with me, your host, Seamus Barry, the podcast that gives you the insight into our local games of hurling and camogie. Join us as we take a look at some of the characters around the county on I Love My Club By. Welcome to episode 7 of I Love My Club By, the podcast that brings you closer to our local games of hurling and camogie in Waterford. I'm delighted to say this week we have Brian O'Halloran, the man from Clashmore-Kinsalebeg. I suppose Brian would have been known for playing for Waterford for over nearly 10 seasons during his time senior, which most of the time he would have lined out in either the full forward or the wing forward line. He has a glamoring CV, as you would say. He won a Fitzgibbon with Mary Immaculate MI, I suppose people would know him. And then with his own Clashmore, of course, he's won some minor football title. He's also won a couple of intermediate championships. I suppose looking to Waterford, Brian then has a couple of different winnings with Waterford career statistics. He won a league. He also won 2 Munsters. He made 47 appearances and he scored 37 points. Brian, how are you?
Very good, Seamus. Very good.
I believe you're in a classroom talking to me right now.
I am doing a small bit of paperwork at the end of the day, but Easter holidays are not too far away, so I'm sure not many people will have much sympathy for teachers at the moment, but doing a small bit extra.
Yeah, I was going to say to you, teachers, people say you have a handy number, with the summer holidays and I suppose midterm and Christmas, but a lot of work I'd say you have to be done behind the scenes that people aren't aware of.
Yeah, there is. Look, it's a job. If you like it, it's a great job. But a lot of the people who do give out about it, I don't think they would actually last in a classroom for too long with 30 kids. It's an acquired taste in a way, but if you do like it, it is a great job. And look, to call a spade a spade, having the time off in the evenings and the holidays, it's brilliant. And it's a great life balance, I suppose, as well. But there are things probably that people don't see. They think you land in at 9 and you're gone again at 3. There's a bit more to it than that, but I'm not going to say teaching is an especially difficult job at times. If you like it, it's a great job, to be honest.
And what do you teach, Brian?
I teach primary school, so I have 6th class at the moment. There's 12 subjects on the curriculum, and there's loads of other random stuff thrown in. So I love the primary school teaching. I was considering secondary school years ago, and maybe doing PE and Irish and things like that, but I kind of settled on primary school, and I'm thrilled with my choices. I love dealing with the younger kids, and towards the end of primary school, getting them ready for secondary school and the big bad world, I suppose. So I enjoyed that aspect of teaching.
And did you always want to be a teacher, like from when you were younger? Obviously, given your career in hurling, you're always going to be active in sport, but had you a plan lined out from when you were going to leave school or head into college what you were going to do?
I was very lucky, yes. Through secondary school, I suppose you start thinking of jobs and maybe 4th year on, and teaching always stuck out. Some of I wasn't too skilled in a lot of other areas. I knew I didn't want to be in an office or IT job. That wasn't for me. I wasn't too good with my hands as regards manual kind of woodwork and tech craft and stuff like that. So, there wasn't loads of options for me. I liked working with people and things like that, and teaching just seemed like one of the obvious jobs. I worked on a few summer camps when I was younger, and I enjoyed them, and it just seemed like the natural thing to aim for, to be honest. And it was it was fairly seamless. As I said, I was very lucky that I knew from an early age that it was something that appealed, and I was glad that it did appeal, and I'm glad it went so well and it's going so well.
And would you see, like you said, you were doing summer camps, would you see a crossover? Obviously people that coach in the GA or help out in their local club, it must build your confidence, especially speaking to youngsters, and you can control a room and you get respect and you give respect. There must be a big crossover there.
Oh, huge. The summer camps, I learned probably more at them than a lot of aspects of Mary I in college. You learn loads about kids on them camps, the way they behave, the way they operate, what they enjoy, what they don't enjoy. It's real hands-on, those camps. And like a lot of people are probably daunted by coaching young kids, but look, the nurseries at the moment in Waterford, there's well kids which I'm involved in Waterford. they're a great way to get involved in coaching, and there's a great buzz of coaching kids. And as you said, you can teach them J skills and movement skills, but you can always teach them bits about respect and how to kind of carry yourself. And the camps are great for things like that.
It's a funny one because you say obviously it's great to coach kids. I would actually go again and say adults are actually tougher to coach than kids.
In ways they are, and I agree with you. I think the same, but I would think the perception of if someone wants to get started in coaching, I think they generally lean towards the older ages because maybe they think they won't have to deal with short attention spans or behavioral difficulties or things like that. So I think the perception is that it's easier to coach adults or older people, but I agree with you. I think it's actually easier to coach the younger children once you get used to it. Now it might be hard at the start because they find it hard to follow instructions, and you want them lined up properly and things like that, and they might find that hard. But once you overcome those little things, it is actually easier.
And with the Well Kids, obviously the initiative, there was a launch night a couple of weeks back up in Dungarvan. Do you see, like, with the current structures that are in club in Waterford and around Ireland, especially underage, do you think there's a case to be said for maybe taking the scores away in underage, maybe from like under 12 down?
It's something we're looking into, but when I see kids in school, I do think we need to balance the kids by nature. They have this competitive nature, and I suppose I wouldn't like that taken away either. Like, you watch the kids on a playground and they are keeping score themselves. There could be 7-year-olds, they could be playing a game of catch and throw, but they're making a little game out of it. And winning and losing isn't probably a bad thing. I do think that you're talking about under 12 matches, it does annoy me to see a lot of subs in those games on both sides. Like, surely we could make a bigger pitch and have no subs or something like that. I think at times we're bound maybe stupidly by rules. Oh, this is a 13-a-side competition. If both teams land on with 17, why not play 17 aside? It might be a small bit crowded, but there's nothing worse than seeing a 10-year-old standing on the sideline waiting to come on. It shouldn't be that way. The scores wise, look, at a very young age, I don't think they need to be, under 7s and 8s. And I don't think scores are a big thing. And I think Waterford are doing a great job. But I do think, once they get, us over a certain age, I think the children themselves will want to know about winning and losing. And, sometimes it's no harm to learn about losing. Life it's difficult at times. And maybe if we shy away from the losing part of it, they won't learn to lose. And it's probably something, you need to know at an early enough age that, life isn't perfect. You can't win all the time. There'll be some disappointments and defeats along the way. And maybe introducing that at an early age, it can, be a bit of character building for the kids.
And like, I suppose the reason I'm saying it is I know my own club, but given your club, say, what's your underage structure at? Like, numbers wise, would you have big numbers underage?
We'd be very average kind of rural club, Seamus. As I said, we introduced the Well Kids we trialed something like it in Clashmore about 2 years ago. So we've seen a great increase in kind of the 4, 5, 6-year-olds starting off in the club. There was nothing much there for that age before in Clashmore. Like a lot of clubs, we hadn't done nurseries. But suddenly now on Saturday mornings, we kind of have our 30 and 40, 4, 5, 6-year-olds there. And I'd say what's getting a bounce off that then is the 7 and 8s this year. They're kind of continuing to stick with it. So, you probably have, most of our ages, underage seem to be healthy enough. And then, you will lose a few along the way. They'll go at different sports and they might fall out of love with it. But, once we get to 10s and 11s, we're doing okay. We have a team in kind of most ages. And sometimes it's a struggle for numbers, like a lot of rural clubs. I think Jay probably isn't the be all and end all for a lot of kids like it was maybe years ago. There's a lot of other attractions and a lot of other things to be doing now. So look, it is a struggle once you get to a certain age, and maybe getting coaches is a struggle as well and things like that. So no, it's not easy to keep juvenile clubs going, to be honest.
Yeah, because the way I see it, obviously, I'm at a lot of games underage, including my own club. But there's teams, and it's not their fault, it's not the club's fault, that they have 3 or 4 teams in A, B, C in different age groups. And like, for example, I would remember playing against yourself under 14, 16 minor, going up to Clashmore, ye coming down to us, and we would have always been in the B. You would have got a team that go into the A, but what you see is teams are, certain clubs, and it's not just one club, particular clubs are winning the C, B, and A in a certain age. They have maybe 45 players up to the age. Like I know in my own club, we would have had 7 or 8 up to the age in our minor team that would have played against yourselves.
Yeah.
That's the issue,
and
I think.
It is, and I don't know what the answer is to that, because you want to give all those big clubs, you want to give all their kids a chance of playing as well. I know in some clubs in Cork, the likes of Nemo Rangers, they don't pick an A team, a B team, and things like that. They try and have 3 or 4 even teams, if you get me. So they put some of their stronger kids with some of their weaker kids, and that seems to work for them. And maybe that's an avenue that some could go down. It's not an easy problem to answer. The clubs with big numbers, they're important too, and you want to keep as many hurling and playing football in those clubs as well. But having said that, you're dead right. You don't want those clubs to be winning 2 titles out of the 4 on offer. It's just not healthy for competition, I suppose.
It's an interesting one about the Nemo Rangers, because an uncle of mine always he still says it to me, that what he used to do when he was coaching underage, he coaches soccer and stuff, he'd always take his strongest player and ask him to go in drills with his weakest player to try and prove him. So maybe if you have that balance, because like you said, if you have an A team that have 15 to 20 superb hurlers, and you have a C team that has 15 to 16 average hurlers, surely in order for someone, not even hurling, any walk of life, we get better by learning off someone with experience or someone who's at a higher level at us.
Definitely. And I think, it's not a problem, unfortunately, that most clubs in Waterford are going to have. They'll be laughing at the thought of having a few teams. But for the big clubs, it is something maybe that could be explored. As I said, I know it's something that in Nemo Rangers, they promoted for years. And as you said, kids will learn a bit from coaches, but you will learn loads more with the lads you're playing with and training with, and you'll see how a fella is hitting the ball well, or how a fella's moving well, and you'll learn little nuggets by playing with him. And likewise, the good lads, it teaches them a bit of empathy and things like that, that look, we can't all be brilliant. And like if they're playing with a lad who's only getting used to playing hurling or football, it might frustrate him a while that he's not as good as he'd like him to be, but it teaches him a lot as well about life.
That's it. And like you see, boys and girls, sometimes when they come into 16, 17, they get a growth spurt, or they develop their skills, and they actually go on to be better than probably some of the players that were the best players, say under 14 or 15. It's not always that player is guaranteed to be what they are in the future. But looking at, I suppose, I always want to give emphasis the club, but I want to touch a bit on Waterford first, because you got put in the spotlight at a very young age in the senior setup.
I did. I had a good year as a minor. My last year as a minor, things went very well for me. We won the Munster. I mean, we got to our Ireland semi-final, and we had a very good team. And I wasn't one of the best on that team. I was a solid performer in the half-forward line, but the likes of Martin O'Neill was taking the frees. Philip and Dara Fives were there. Saki was in goal.
I wasn't. I think was playing cornerback from.
He was indeed. Yeah. I wasn't the standout, but in the last game in the semi-final in Croke Park against Galloway, it kind of went, especially well for me, I suppose. And Davy Fitz made contact a few months later, and asked would I come in to the senior setup. I was doing my leaving cert, so I said no, just because I wanted to get primary teaching, and it was going to be a bit of a, all hands on deck to get the points. So, inter-county hurling, it wasn't going to be conducive to getting high points in my leaving. So I said no to Davey. Thanks a million for the offer, and it was a privilege. And I remember going down and meeting him and seeing some of the lads training, and it was a privilege to be asked. But I said no, and look, he said he might be in touch later on in the year. To be honest, I kind of forgot about it. And he rang, I think I'd one subject left in my leaving cert, and he rang and said, would I come training in 10 days time when the leaving was over? And I said, I'd give it a go then. And it kind of, it went dreamlike for the first while. I went down training, and it was brilliant meeting lads that I'd been seeing for years, and kind of played without fear, and I was training well. I literally expected to carry the water for the year, and it was just going to be experience and things like that. But we drew the Munster final about 2 or 3 weeks after I came on board, and the following week was the replay, and I came on in the replay. I knew the way Davey had been talking to me. Yeah, that was the game that Dan scored the goal, actually. And so I knew the way Davey was talking the week beforehand that, you know, I had a chance of coming on, and I was stunned. But the day of it, I was kind of half prepared the way Davey had been speaking. And the Munster final went well, got a point, we won, dream-like stuff. Before the semi-final, then a few weeks of training went well as well. And Davey was saying I was in contention to start. And again, I wasn't overly phased by it. I felt that, you know, I had nothing to lose and things like that. But look, just up in Croke Park in the semi-final, things went disastrously for me. The idea sounded fine, that I was fast and, you know, the ball would be sprayed to the corner and I'd have the pace to get there. But look, these things don't always work. Like, they sound lovely on paper, but the first few balls came in were kind of, you know, 50-50, and I hadn't the hope physically or, you know, craft-wise, cuteness-wise. I was totally new to the inter-county scene, and I was blown away by Paul Kern. He was full back, I was full forward, and, you know, I wouldn't, if there was another 20 balls sitting between us that day, I wouldn't have won many, to be honest. Just the way it was, I wasn't probably ready. I wouldn't blame Davey either. You know, he had a plan, and just the plan didn't work. It was a good plan, and if the ball came in differently or perfectly, I might have won a few of them. But look, that's not the way it was. You know, it went, and that's just one of those things that happened.
And how did you deal with that after? Because, like, I remember being at that game, and obviously, like I said, I would have played against you a couple of times underage, and, you know, like, you'd be going to a match and you'd be there going, Jesus, you see Brian O'Halloran's name to start today, and you're like, he's fair young, and like, yeah, but he's fast, like you said, and, you know, Croke Park, plenty of space. So for you, like, there was probably nothing to lose for you going into it. But I suppose from Waterford, we were kind of, as a fan's perspective, we were there going, there's an exciting young prospect coming through. And then when it doesn't happen, you start to hear, which you'll always get regardless of what sport you're in, like negative stuff coming in. You know, he shouldn't have started, he's too young, he's not proven, Davey got it wrong. And look, you'll always get that, you'll always have naysayers. But did you get protected from that, or did you hear any of that?
No, I didn't get protected from. I don't know how someone could protect you either. Like, you know, I'm not going to blame anyone for not protecting me. No, I was exposed to it. I heard most of it. You know, maybe more experience, you wouldn't read the papers the next day. I'd say I did. Kind of wallowed in how bad it had went. There wasn't much hiding away from it. No, it was a bad time. I felt like, you know, felt a bit embarrassed and ashamed, to be honest. But I was going to college. I got my leaving cert results a few days later, and I was going to college. And look, there was good things happening in my life as well, thankfully. Suppose I did carry maybe the shame of it around a bit. I felt starting college, I was the fella who had been taken off after 20 minutes in Croke Park, you know. And I felt that when people were, you know, being introduced to me, I felt that was the first thing they were thinking. And not that it didn't get me down, to be honest. It was just something I had to carry around with me. And, thankfully it didn't overly affect me mentally or anything like that. But as I said, yeah, I did feel I'd let, I suppose, my family down a bit. It was tough probably on them hearing the stuff that, you know, he wasn't good enough, he was too young. I felt like I'd let Davey down, the Waterford lads down. Like, there were some legends who could have played before me. I just felt like general shame and embarrassment about the whole thing. And look, as I said, it's just one of those things that I had to go through, and maybe, you know, it's good to me in the long run.
Well, that's it, especially the way you're speaking about it now. And, you know, obviously you're talking about your mental state, and it obviously has done you the world of good in a sense. And like you said earlier about, you know, keeping score, sometimes it's important for losses. It's important. And I always say, if we don't have a bad time, you can never experience in a good time, because you can't get to that high level because you can't experience a low level. So I definitely agree with you there. In terms of the shame and guilt and carrying that around, I was out playing golf earlier, and I was talking to a mate of mine. We were playing, and I said it to him. He was like, if Waterford had done this, or if, you know, Passage done this. And I said, that's the thing in sport. You can't change it. Once it's done, it's done. But we all feel, like, I remember playing, you know, with my own club, and you go out in games, and I used to hear it a lot. People would say, you know, he shouldn't be playing, or he's not good enough. And you take it so personally, and you'd feel like you've left people down. But it's hilarious because you're actually putting on a jersey for those people. And like, you're never actually letting anyone down. You know, it's a fact of life. Some things don't go your way. Other days you've good days, you've bad days. But is it amazing how much we take it on board ourselves, as if you went out to do that in that All-Ireland semi-final?
Oh yeah, we do. We internalize everything, and it's just the way the mind works, isn't it? You overthink everything, and you can think the worst in what people are thinking, and half of them mightn't even be thinking it. But we're all, as humans, I suppose, we're our own worst critics in lots of ways, and we probably overthink and internalize so much. As you said, we think we're letting people down, and we think we've let ourselves down, and a lot of the time people are just, they're hoping you don't feel too bad, and they're happy with you, and they're hoping you're not too down, and that's the kind of way it works, isn't it?
It is indeed. Looking at your own club, are you still playing at the moment, Brian?
I am. Yeah, I always loved playing with Clashmore-Kinsalebeg. It was one of the reasons probably finishing up at Waterford, it was made easier in ways that I was keen to go back to the club and throw myself into it for a good few years. So yeah, I always loved playing with Clashmore-Kinsalebeg, and yeah, thankfully we're still playing away, and hopefully we'll be for a few more years.
And I suppose the aim for this year is get up senior, is it?
Yes, we've been kind of half knocking on the door. Well, knocking on the door the last few years in intermediate. We were without Tig last year, which was a big loss. We'd need probably everyone to give it a good rattle. And then, this year in intermediate in the West alone, we've Ballyduff and Ballysaggart, who were brilliant in senior last year, they're back down. So it's not an easy championship to get out of the West, and the standard in the East is very good as well. So it's by no means a given that you'll even make the latter stages. We were knocked out last year in the group stages, surprisingly. But yeah, look, we'd love to become a senior club. Just as I said, to say we were senior, it's something that wouldn't even have been a pipe dream in Clashmore when I was growing up, that we could have been senior hurling. And the fact it's even mentioned now is great. But we would love to get there, and the likes of Tig, kind of generational player for a club. So we'll have to be going up in the next year or so to make it happen.
Yeah, it's an interesting one, because I agree with you. I think the intermediate in the West is actually the best competition in the county, in terms of junior, senior, intermediate. I think the intermediate West, the overall East and West, yeah, I've done a lot of games, umpiring and stuff with the East, but the West is very competitive. It's always a hard one. And like you said, Ballysaggart, Ballyduff coming back down. I mean, Ballysaggart with the four lads alone, like, could win any game. At senior level, they were very unlucky with a couple of results last year, so that'll be an interesting championship this year. Looking then, I suppose, experiences in the GA, because you're obviously you're working with the Well Kids program. You're working in a primary school. You're heavily involved in your club. You must love the GA in overall, like, not just hurling or Gaelic football or handball or camogie or any element of it, but you must have some really good experiences with your own club.
Yeah, I do, and at times Jay wrecks my head with the amount of stuff that you have to do, but yeah, would I change it? Probably not. Would you like to have less stuff to do at times? Probably, yeah. There seems to be always something to do, but look, it is something to do, and it gives you something to do, and you feel like you're giving back, and things like that. But you'd love if more and more people got involved in smaller clubs. I suppose I'd find in Clashmore there's probably 10 absolutely outstanding people that carry a lot of the burden in running the whole club. And you'd love, I suppose, if you could spread that out more in clubs. And it's probably the same in every club. And as great as our club is, it would probably fall apart if 4 or 5 people decided to up sticks in the morning, that kind of way.
Yeah.
So look, it is great, but brilliant, as you said, brilliant memories. And even now, the nursery, the Well Kids on a Saturday morning, you go up there some mornings and you'd be not dreading it in a way, but you think it's an effort. And when it starts, you're buzzing, and then on all day Saturday you're buzzing after it and things like that. And yeah, look, it's brilliant. The club, it's unreal what it gives to a community. It's a hub for all the communities, and it's a great place to go for young and old.
It's and like on that note, I suppose it's something I've highlighted on every podcast, and I was on with Dermot and Dave on Today FM there a couple of weeks ago, and one of the main topics of it was mental health, and that's what the GA is. It's an outlet, you know. There's so much going on in the world today, and like that, especially rural areas. I'm from a rural area, so are you. Like, it literally is the hub of the community.
It is, and maybe some people don't feel like that they can go up there, and I think maybe the J, and they are trying more and more to open, I suppose, the doors. But like, some people feel that they don't play J, they can't go up there. Maybe we should do more to realize, look, you can come up and have a coffee up at the J pitch. You don't have to play anything or train. You can come up and help to coach kids, or help to wash bibs, or help to lay out cones. I think maybe we maybe could. I don't know how. I'm just thinking out loud now. Just make it more and more open, and try and get as many people who feel that they're not into J up there as possible. Because, as you said, for you and I and J people, we all know it's the hub of the community. But there's a lot of people in rural areas who feel like they've nothing to do, they've nowhere to go, and maybe the J Club is the place for them in some capacity. It mightn't be a playing capacity or a training capacity, but it might give them an outlet once or twice a week and a place to go.
That's it. I always say it. I think there's a role for everyone in the GA, like, regardless if you're good at finances, if you're good at organization, if you're good at admin work, like you said, washing bibs, making coffee, sandwiches, cleaning out the dressing room. Like, there's something to be involved with. And like, with the different levels that are there from under 6 or under 4, like you said, the whole way up to adult, like, there's so many teams, everyone needs a pair of hands. And I suppose we want more and more people to get involved in GA, and we want more of a diverse. And I think that's what's happening a lot lately. We see it in the county scene. We have a lot more nationalities. We're seeing it in the underage game as well, which can only be better for us. Like, I know the uncle that is playing for Cork at the moment, Timmy Wilkes, he's Polish, and he's an absolutely outstanding hurler. He played under 17 last year.
Is he the sprinter as well, the great athlete?
He is, yeah. He's the really quick fella.
Yeah, he's brilliant. Yeah,
he was playing last night. My brother refed Cork and Clare last year, and he was just outstanding. And we were talking, because we done Cork and Wexford in a challenge earlier in the year, and we were talking to management after, and they said, "Do you know he only started playing hurling 2 years ago?" And we were like, "What?" Yeah, so like, it shows, regardless of your background, or where you come from, once them attributes are there in terms of sport, like, there's so many crossovers that people could bring in if someone was a sprinter or played basketball, like,
Yeah, definitely. You're definitely right.
So like, we want to encourage as many people as possible. And I suppose another thing is to get involved in camogie, not just hurling. Camogie is the level of camogie now in Waterford at the moment, especially at senior level, is outstanding. I know my own club, Galtier, and I think that's another thing. I always say my own club, Galtier, because Galtier is my camogie club. My mother and my aunties, my sister would have all played. But I think that's something that's we need to get the male side more involved. Is like, people say, there's a camogie club out the road. No, that's your camogie club. That's your area.
Yeah.
It's the same as a female would say, I'm going to watch my club play, Passage are playing later, or Clashmore playing later.
Yeah, no, you should. You're definitely right. And one of the key things and what's making Well Kids so successful is it's for boys and girls. And if we had said, oh no, we're only the men's club, we're only taking the boys, we'd only have 15 or so there, or 15 or 20 on a Saturday morning, which would be grand. But suddenly now, with when the girls are there, you've 30 or 35, and you've a great buzz there. And no, definitely we should be promoting the the ladies clubs as much. And as you said, it's generally one club, and the standard is really blossoming the last few years. And I suppose people should acknowledge that, and try and get involved as much as they can.
And it makes it easier, I suppose, nowadays with the name is after going through my head, the crowd that are showing all the games. You can get the games, whether it's junior, intermediate, senior. A lot of the games are either on YouTube being streamed, or else you can actually buy the games, which I think is a brilliant. I never understood why club games weren't being showed. Like, our team might show an odd one in Cork or Limerick, but I mean, I know Buff Egan does a lot of work, and I met Buff recently, and we were chatting about it, and like, I think nearly every there's infrastructure there because people will pay to see it, and you'll have people traveling around the world, like lads that are in Australia and New Zealand that will tune in to watch a game. But then you also have elderly population who might not be able to get to a game or might have moved area. And maybe if there was a big game that a club could show it in their clubhouse and people could go watch it.
Yeah, definitely. I know that some clubs, internally would be worried that they might lose out, and maybe some county boards, they may lose out on a small bit of attendances if it is on television. But for what you lose and what you gain, there's definitely more to be gained from showing the game on YouTube and things like that. When you consider the amount of people that every club have living in America or Australia or England, when you consider the amount of elderly people in clubs who just can't get to the game, or people with disabilities, you're reaching all them. Look, you might be encouraging one or two or a handful not to go to the game who could go, but that's all it is. So as I said, I think maybe it's a small bit narrow-minded to say, well, the attendance will be less if it's on television or it's on YouTube. For the benefit it brings, losing a few tenors isn't the end of the world.
No, and that's it. And also, like, the GAA could actually get in a partnership with a televising platform. It doesn't necessarily mean the GAA loses out. Like, if you were working, say, for example, if you were working in a bar or something, and you work in the local pub, say, in Clashmore, and you're like, I can't get down to the match tonight. They're like, sure, it's grand, we'll throw it on anyway. And it's there for everyone to see. Like, and like you said, you might actually get in more people because someone might be there going, Jesus, I've just moved to the area. I don't really know anything about hurling. Oh, this is the local team. Okay. Oh, there's the chap that works in the shop. And then they start to get interested, and it might actually get people more involved with the local club. I think there's a big gap there.
Yeah, no, there is. The COVID 2020, we got to the Western final against Ballyduffin. They beat us on penalties, but a lot of the kids they were actually seeing more of our games, and they knew more of the names that year than any of the years that the games, they hadn't been on YouTube, because, maybe parents couldn't bring them. Everyone's busy and things like that. But it seemed like a lot of people around Clashmore and Kinsalebeg were, settling down to watch these games, and, they were definitely reaching a bigger audience than previously because they were on YouTube.
Yeah, we played Ballygunner in the 2020 senior final, and I remember going in, and obviously no one could attend it, which was one of the strangest things ever. But we were getting talked out in the stand, and like we could hear them giving their team talk, and they could hear us. And yeah, I remember that morning, like, family members and friends text you, I'll be watching the game later. Best of luck. Going to tune in for the game. I'm watching the game, and it was kind of exciting in a sense, because obviously you would have loved as many people to be there as possible, but you had people then during the week saying to you who you wouldn't have known would have been interested in hurling, saying, oh, you're playing the weekend, my nephew or my niece is going to put it on the TV, we're going to sit down and watch it. And it made it an event in a sense. Like,
no, it did. And as I said, I hope it's something that doesn't disappear. I think last year a lot of clubs were latching onto it, but it is something. And I'd be the first to admit, I'm not great to go to, club games in Waterford. I feel that, I spend so much of my time, involved in J stuff with my own club and a few other bits that, I often don't make the effort to go to club games. But I love, as you said, having a few pints with the lads. I love when they're on, someone's after streaming the game on their phone or on the screen in the pub, or a few of the lads come over and we watch, Ballygunner Lismore or something like that. I don't see why it's not done more.
Yeah, it's a definitely look. Hopefully, it's something that takes off. I suppose, like, I don't want to keep you too long, as I always say to every guest, because sometimes the conversation just flows, and when you're enjoying it, and you kind of get lost in time. But a couple of questions I have for you. Your favorite movie of all time?
Every J player seems to say The Shawshank Redemption. No, mine is The Wind That Shakes the Barley.
Nice. I do like that as well. I am going to say, though, mine is Shawshank Redemption. I'm obsessed with that film.
And it's okay. I think there's a train of thought at the moment that popular answers in general in every aspect of life aren't allowed. I think no one should ever be ashamed of loving that film. It's a great one.
No, that's very true. What about your favorite book? Do you read?
I do. I read a decent bit. I love autobiographies and things like that. My favorite book, there's a good question. I really enjoyed Jim Stein's autobiography. That was one of the best ones that I read. And there was a book by Damien Lawler last year. It's about people when they retired and after retirement, how they coped with it and were prepared for it. I think it was something like when the light fades or something like that.
Yes,
But it's well worth a read for anyone. I wasn't thinking about retiring. It was nothing to do. It was a book that was new at the time and I thought it'd be interesting. And I love books that you can pick up and go away from, because it was an individual chapter for each sports person.
Yeah.
So you didn't have to, I would say, remember the last person, but I remember there was snippets from it. They were absolutely brilliant. So it's one of the best books I've read in the last while.
Favorite sports person outside of GA?
Tiger Woods or Roy Keane.
Interesting. If you're going to have 3 guests, past or present, for dinner, who would it be?
Luke Kelly, Roy Keane, and Derek McGrath.
There's a mix of intellectual stability, huh? Right.
There is, yeah.
Roy Keane, Luke. So Luke Kelly's sing. Derek will talk about the meaning of all the lyrics, and Roy will just tell everyone at the end of the night to
do us a favor and head off.
Right, a couple of other questions that we do, I suppose. Best club hurler you've ever played against?
Best club hurler I've ever played against. Donny Burnock from Ring has been a standout for years for Ring. He was brilliant, and look, all the Ballysaggart lads, I played against them a few times. The 3 lads, they're exceptional every time, you know. Yeah,
Donny's a serious footballer as well.
He is a brilliant dual player, yeah.
Yeah, brilliant dual player. I think that's dying out, unfortunately. Another one, I suppose, for you, the best club hurler you played with in terms of your own club. I have a feeling I know who you're going to say, but.
Yeah, obviously the obvious well, he's actually Burke around here, would you believe? He was the Burke in secondary school, and that stuck into his Waterford days, but he's actually known as Ty Burke around here. Yeah, look, Ty's been really, Edmund, my cousin, he's been a great he's only about 26 or 7, but he's been actually a stalwart for Clashmore down through the years, and probably one of the most consistent performers among us all. So, you know, Edmund in our own club has been a great club hurler.
Nice. And have you any unsung heroes in your club that does a lot of work behind the scenes that people won't be aware
of? Timmy O'Keefe has kept things going for many decades around. I'd say there's not a player alive in Clashmore, past or present, who he hasn't had some influence on. So Timmy O'Keefe has been a great club man.
Nice. And just to finish it up now, this is a deep one, right? Any regrets in your GAA career?
No, none. I got plenty of injuries at the start, but I don't think I did anything wrong with them and could have changed anything. No, I never look back and really say I should have done that or I shouldn't have done that, and I wouldn't like to be thinking that way either. So I try not to have regrets in general. So no, I don't. I'm happy with my lot. I got to do a lot more than what a lot of lads would love to do. And look, as I said, I never established myself as an intercounty starter and things like that, but I still feel I was luckier than most, and you know, I don't regret or resent any part of it.
But that's it, Brian. You know, like looking back on your career with Waterford, you're privileged, obviously, to play. I think anyone that gets to play with Waterford is privileged. But you got to put on that jersey. You get to run out in Thurles, you know, Crow Park, and play in the All-Ireland semi-final. You won a Munster title. You won a league title. You scored on your debut in front of a full capacity in Thurles. I mean, I know you're looking back saying you didn't, I suppose, stamp yourself as inter-county starter, but you could be proud and hold your head up in what you've done in your inter-county career.
Yeah, and that's it exactly. Now, 2 seconds, James. My census enumerator is just here to collect my form, so I'll be 1 second dropping it out to him.
No problem, Brian.
Thanks, David. No, it's not every podcast will be interrupted by a census.
I tell you won't see Joe Rogan. You won't have that Joe Rogan show anyway.
No, that was short and sweet.
Look, I suppose looking over the time that we spent chatting to each other here now, hopefully it's giving people an insight into, you know, the intermediate championship, Clashmore as a whole. you as a person, because that's what we want to highlight here. Everybody has a story, and it's not just about the hurling, you know. That's why we're looking at your work career and, you know, mental health, and just an all-around kind of introduction to who Brian O'Halloran is. And I wish you the best of luck for 2022. I had to think what year it was because they're going by so fast. 2022 with Clashmore, and like you said, intermediate is going to be very tough this year, but hopefully, you know, you can get a good run, and I wish you continued success.
Thanks a million, James. Great chatting to you today. Thanks a million.
Been a pleasure, Brian.
Wherever you're listening, whether it be Ballyduff or Ballygunner, Passage or Portlaw, Dungarvan or Dunhill, tune in to I Love My Club Boy, the podcast that brings you closer to camogie and hurling in the Waterford club scene. Don't forget, hurling is our passion.